interview series in conversations with Prof Jideofor Adibe, that's myself. And in this segment, we have the privilege and the honor of bringing a very local speaker, Hon.Cletus, APC chieftain, Cross River State, and a very known face on our television screens. Honorable, you are most welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let me just start with some of the recent developments. I just want to comment on Ghana, where the former president just returned to power, and the closest rival quickly conceded defeat even before the votes have been completely tallied. Given the rivalry between Nigeria and Ghana, what are the lessons? You know, we normally call Ghanaians our younger brother, and they get angry because they actually got independence before us. It's just like if you have a younger brother who is much bigger. I mean, if you have a younger brother who is much bigger and stronger than you. So what do you think are there lessons for us to learn?
Yes, quick lessons. If anybody is learning lessons, Ghana learned lessons from Nigeria. The reverse is the case because remember 2015, Jonathan quickly called his opponent and congratulated him. Nigerians forget that part of our history and meant them to think that nothing is possible, positive is possible in Nigeria. Don't also forget that Nigeria have had the first election on the continent in the 1920s.
Okay.
So, if any lessons are to learn, Ghana is learning from Nigeria fast. So
when you talk about that first lesson in the 1920s, the British Congress of West Africa was actually in Ghana.
Yes, but who was responsible?
Kesley Hayford was a Ghanaian. I can remember that.
Yeah, but in doing that, what I'm saying is, that was 1921, isn't it?
Yeah, 1920, yeah.
Yes. So, the lessons for Ghana to learn from Nigeria, and Nigeria to learn as well, because the learning process is why even the US have to learn a few lessons from Nigeria.
Yeah. Because
we have in 64 years, with the first 24 uninterrupted years of democratic dispensations in Nigeria, you would say that we are not faring badly. Our electoral process is improving. And in the case of Ghana, the dramatic thing is that here it has happened that the subnationals in Nigeria. Yes. A Ghanaian president who was thrown out as a sitting president, something unprecedented. And there was something like that attempted to happened in Kenya, and it was mayhem. It took the whole world to come to almost on its knees to bring Kenya back to normalcy. And it happened in Ghana and nothing happened. In Nigeria it happened in 2015, nothing happened. And then here we are again, the return.
Yeah, it also happened in Senegal.
So Africa is coming of age. And so for me, the lesson to learn is that this democracy can indeed survive, and Ghana joining Nigeria and others is beginning to demonstrate that Africans are learning. And
will you really say that? Because it seems to be like a mixed bag. If you look at it, the other one, there seems to be actually democratic regression in most parts of Africa. In Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Guinea, Conakry, you see a resurgence of military coup. In other places, even in Senegal we mentioned, and in Rwanda we see constitutional coup where people, elongate the tenure beyond what the constitution originally stipulated. So wouldn't you, even if you come back to Nigeria, you see what they call liberal democracy. You have elections where the outcomes are fairly known in advance, and where the electoral processes are fairly always manipulated. So how do we just conclude from Ghana? One instance, is it not that Ghana is unique? Some people say there are lessons. I was listening to some of the commentary. Somebody said the lesson they didn't learn any lesson. Yes, they took beavers and improved upon it, but the other aspect of snatching ballot boxes and the issue with the judiciary and the rest of them, they refused to learn. So,
well, let me say this. Something intriguing for me, from my perspective, it might be very skewed. Maybe because I'm an Africanist. I'm so optimistic in spite of our hiccups and challenges that, of course, like Obasanjo said, and most of Europe and even the Americas, there is no human institution that is perfect. It is an evolution. What you are calling a regression is a belated resurgence of revolution. Protest against neo-colonialism, what you are seeing in Francophone Africa. Countries are named power Francophone. And you know the stranglehold economically. If you do a political economic analysis of those regions and those countries, you will notice clearly that the stranglehold of neo-colonialism was more prevalent and is too very evident in those countries. Cameroon is still suffering it, in which a near vegetating president still presides because France wants it so. And from what we hear, he even wants something like a dynasty in the handing over, some kind of a monarchy. He wants to hand over to his son. And this is not strange altogether. But what I would rather say of those countries you are calling regressing, in terms of Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, Niger, Chad, those countries, what they did was indeed a commendable step in freeing and getting into some second phase of colonialism that they are extricating themselves from, and to get their economic independence, because their political independence on paper became a problem. Unlike the British that gave some free leverage to its colonies or former colonies, France did not do so on the African continent. And that is why it is worrisome, our new friendship with France. France and its colonies, former colonies, have been problematic to Nigeria in terms of our international relations. Otherwise, most of what we find as insurgency, banditry and others, cross-border banditry has become predominant because of the lack of cooperation. For instance, in seeking to acquire the Bakassi Peninsula, it gives nothing in the Bight of Biafra within the Gulf of Guinea. The maritime boundaries of Nigeria were compromised by that singular fact of taking off of the Bakassi Peninsula. Because that corridor, the peninsula, means that Nigeria, in operating along those seas, must have to seek international clearance from Cameroon to be able to take even arms through the sea. The Nigerian Navy is limited by that. That is some form of diplomatic hostility. The second thing on this leg of it is that the Ghanaian experience, which is quite good for Nigeria, is that as Anglophones, they have leveraged on it a great deal. Remember the Ghana must go syndrome in the 70s. Nigeria quickly recovered from it, and the Ghanaian through rollings in what we term as a regression of democracy. When JJ came in, we used to call him Junior Jesus because of what he established in Ghana that is yielding fruits today. He's not here to reap the fruits, but the Ghanaians are better for it, because even though he came with a military democracy, he still was able to maintain a standard and give Ghana a foundation upon which today you can lose an election today and win again tomorrow, and there will be no fracas and there will be no violence. Gradually, the African continent is seeing a resurgence and an improvement. Is it not recently, in 2020, that America, after over 250 years of democracy, was still having a Trump calling for resistance to an electoral result after 250 years, and in 64 years, 65 years, apart from Sierra Leone, or is it Liberia, and Ethiopia, and others that were never colonized. If under 100 years, Africans have gotten to this point because of the examples they are seeing in other countries, they decimated and balkanized USSR in all its shreds of islands and pockets of countries that they have littered around the place, are still taken seriously by the world, including Ukraine. That the entire America is now wanting to kill itself and kill everybody because of Ukraine. And you find the Palestinian war never ending. You now ask yourself, what is Africa so special to the world that you don't want to give credit to the improvements we have made in trying to organize our societies and develop them in times of... Look at the human export we have for Europe and the Americas. The human export. Look at even our raw materials, our inability to convert our raw materials to finished products is what is still making us look primitive and therefore dependent on the West and making us look as if we are not doing anything to help ourselves. The introduction of China and Russia is again bringing new dynamics in terms of our relations with our former colonies, and especially the so-called neutral America. So if America's policy is wherever you see Russia, you must stop. And then if Russia's policy is wherever you see America, you must stop. Then you should know that the Chinese and the Russians are coming to bring a counter force on the African continent. And these tendencies must be, and Nigeria must have to maintain its medium power and non-alignment. The temptation to go into BRICS, into G20, into G7, those G things Nigeria must do what Murtala Mohammed told us in that great famous speech in the Congo in 1975, that Nigeria and Africa has come of age. Africa must come of age now, and the time to do so is now to build its leadership around the developmental needs of the citizens.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable. Let me just move a little bit away from Ghana. But before I do so, I want to make sure that I captured what you said properly. First, I can figure out that as a member of the ruling party, you're trying to be very careful with your choice of words. Are you trying to say that our increasing closeness, or apparently increasing closeness of the Tinubu government towards France is not a good thing for us?
I am heavily skeptical and suspicious of that relationship, and I do not agree that, given France's precedents and history.
Okay.
Look at what France did to us. They ambushed us in the International Court at The Hague to take Bakassi using Cameroon because of the oil region. And they went into the northwest, the southwestern part of it, around Bamenda, Buya area, to now again start an insurgency in which there is a program going on that the world is closing its eyes to. Those of us living in their shared boundary with those communities that have ancestral history with us do not feel that the world is fair to us, and France must be held culpable. And our relationship, for me, for now, I think should be dealt with a long spoon.
All right. I know Ghana, there are so many things Nigeria and Ghana compete on, including on whose jollof rice tastes nicer. But let's move away from this a bit. I don't know if you follow the increasing conversation on the controversial tax bill. On one point, you were a former lawmaker. You know, the acting deputy president of the Senate. We heard him on television say that he was suspending, discussions on the bill. The substantive, the Senate president said no, it was a misrepresentation. What do you think this seeming double talk says of the National Assembly, one? And what's your real opinion on the tax issue, this tax bill, the 4 tax bills before the National Assembly?
No, the issue between the Senate President and the Deputy Senate President were matters of clarification and semantic dislocation.
Okay. But sorry, I personally watched that interview on Arise, where the Deputy Senate President said they were, after listening to public opinion, decided to suspend further proceedings on that. You will recall the National Economic Council, made up of the governors and others, recommended the withdrawal of that bill, to enable further consultation. And the Senate President, the Deputy Senate President, who was presiding that day, on television said, it was not a mark of weakness. They were deciding to step down for that conversation, discussions on the bill, or those bills. And the Senate President said he was, misrepresented.
Clearly, that's why I said it was a case of semantic dislocation. People didn't understand, and maybe the words used by the Deputy Senate President were taken out of context. I watched him as well, from beginning to end. In fact, he even said that the executive brought it, and they in the Senate have also agreed, which is what the President had said before then.
Okay.
When the Economic Council met, that's the governors and others, and most of them vehemently opposed it, the President said there was not going to be a withdrawal, but that there would be further consultation.
Okay.
What the Senate said in what they call executive session, in which the gallery is cleared, in parliamentary tradition, you clear the gallery when there are things that the public ought not to know, and the media and other members of the public are taken out of the chambers to enable members to discuss freely. It happens all over the world. It's a parliamentary tradition. So what had transpired that day with the Deputy Senate President was simply the fact of restating the fact that we are going for further consultation, and that the committee has even been set up, headed by Abamaro, if you remember, Abamaro. He went further to say so. If you are suspending discussion and the committee of the Senate is discussing it, it's not a contradiction in terms. So clearly, what the Senate President did the next day was to reaffirm that you couldn't be saying you are withdrawing and then setting a committee. Which committee? The committee is acting on behalf of the Senate. So the Senate was still deliberating on it. So it was clearly taken out of context and a clear misunderstanding of it. So it was not about withdrawing it, it was about that committee is going to do further. Even when you get bills, you commit them to committees. Those committees are acting on behalf of Parliament. Therefore, Parliament is in session when those committees are doing. But that their action and their reports come back and are laid before the Parliament for debate, further debate on what they have recommended. They are either accepted or rejected. That's the final decision in plenary. So on this occasion, they were saying, look, we are delegating our responsibility to a committee headed by Senator Abamaro. So that was it, the Senate Minority Leader. Then the Senate President had a duty to give that clarification, and that's what precisely happened. Okay. So that must not be taken out of context to show that there's confusion on the. I don't blame Nigerians for this. The Parliament is the youngest arm of government in Nigeria, sufficiently dislocated, sufficiently emasculated, and therefore completely new to the Nigerian people. So there are traditions and ways. That is why, for example, you bring a financial bill, a finance bill, and call it a budget, and then you put 3 boreholes in my community by the Minister of Water Resources. The Minister of Power and Steel brings you 2 solar lights. And I come and look at it and say, I don't need solar lights in my place because I don't even have a road to go there. And remove it and say it is a road we need. That is why I come there to represent the executive man is only appointed by the president to act on his behalf, and comes and thinks that my community needs solar light and borehole when I have streams all over my community. And I now say, look, take away your boreholes, replace it with road. Take away your solar light, replace it with the reparation of my primary school, which is dilapidated. And if the solar light was 5,000 naira, and now the road is going to cost 5 billion, the public shouts and says you are padded. That is what they call padding. And then you now come back, and because there is nobody to explain, we have communication, discommunication, miscommunication, and deliberate mischief by opponents.
But you have publicity and you have spokesperson for the.
Precisely, that's what I'm saying. We are doing so badly there. I have made this point over and over. I am a member of the ruling party, and I have admitted that both at the party level, which ought to correct what the government is doing, correct them, either internally or externally, and do a lot in public. 70% of governance is in publicity. No matter what good, an American president once said, no matter what good you need to do to me, I must know. I need to accept it. You look at me and say my shoe is not good, and I want to buy my shoe. Meanwhile, what I'm looking for is a shirt. But you look at me and think that shoe is my problem. So you must contact me to make me know, to make you know what I really want. I'm not buying good shoe because the money for shoe I converted it to school fees for my daughter. So please allow me. So you were supposed to ask me what do you want. That is why there is interaction. That is why they give them recess to go and I ask you. That takes me to the next question. The issue of the tax reform. The tax reform is again suffering from information anemia. There is a dearth of information not available to the beneficiaries. And the language that is used to even explain it is more tedious than even the bill itself. Simple analogies, simple practical examples of the taxation reform that are sought. You have 50 subheads of taxes, and the government says we need only 10. What that means that you shouldn't have multiple taxation on one item.
But Honorable, is that not simplifying it? I read a report by Agora, who's the former secretary of NATI, what's his name? You know, is running the Agora, and what they did was a pure analysis to say, in principle, I mean, only Kano and Kaduna are supposed to benefit from this. in the north, and that 22 states from the north will end up as the losers. Shegun Adeni also reported that in his column. You know Shegun Adeni?
Yes. Yes, the column.
Yes. So, and yes, I've seen other reports and other people saying, as you mentioned, there is simplifying, it is taking more money to the states. But there are very nuanced things that, you know, the analysis from Agora was showing, and which Shegun Adeni quoted extensively, that if we don't try to, because perception, even if perception is reality, but pure analysis will show that 22 states from the north stand to lose in real time, in measurement. Wouldn't that have been enough? Instead of some people now sitting down to say, oh, you're unproductive, go and be hardworking. For me, that's you know, a very reductionist argument.
Let me first of all deal with the statistics.
Okay.
The northern Nigeria has 19 states. Now, I'm just trying to lay a foundation to show that most of these Brentwood institutions give us things they will not practice in their own clients.
Sorry, I meant to say 22 states of the 36
states of Nigeria, yes.
Will lose,
yes.
Which most of them are in the north.
Yes, let me tell you why. This analysis does not, I would like them to break it down, which is what I'm going to do here in this program.
Okay.
No state will lose, except the state does not exist. Any state that gets an allocation from the federation account has human beings living in it. If we say, for example, that the demographics of Nigeria show that northern Nigeria, which is quite a reversal of what we know of demographics and population movement and densities, that most population densities are in the coastal areas. In Nigeria, it is in the hinterland, the Sahel Savannah, that populates more people, which is a reversal which we have not been able to correct. Now, if you have more people in northern Nigeria by our present population figures, by our present statistics, what that means is that consumables, consumption takes place more in the north, because VAT, for example, is about consumption, is consumption tax. What do you consume? What you consume is what you are paying for. And therefore, if it is a consumption tax, that means more people in the north means more consumption in the north. And what the present tax reforms seek to do is to say where the food is consumed, the people paying there should collect back their VAT.
Okay, just sorry. Because you know that VAT is not, you can't apply it on food. And if you look at three core areas that the north, because when people say the north, they are, you know, parasitic. If you look at cement, the cement company, which also attracts good VAT, is in the north. If you look at sugar, if you look at food, unfortunately, you can't tax food.
Yeah, it's part of the tax.
Yeah. So when people make these kind of comments, and if you look at, even if you are going to tax it, mostly it's peasant agriculture, so you are not still going to get much. For me, wouldn't it have made more sense? Yes, it is true as a parliamentarian, you know that the work is done in committee stages, and after the committee stage, you push it back at the plenary and they take a decision. And people are arguing, go and, you know, if you have any reservations, go at that stage and put it. My own concern is that in a very diverse country like ours, part of showing sensitivity, because today it could be the north, tomorrow it could be the south, it could be the south where you come from. So couldn't it have made sense for perception's sake for the president to say, look, let's remove this for more consultation, especially as a part of the country has become suspicious of it. And the National Economic Council, made up of governors, said, withdraw and do more consultation. What will we have lost? Just for me to say, okay, I'm withdrawing it. I want to consult you more. Even though they say FIRS said they did consultation. Is it what you want? Let's consult more. Some issues that are objectionable, let's tinker them, because this is one federation, so that we can all live in peace.
Did you listen to the Senate President on Thursday in his session? He said, we are giving you 6 weeks. If you need more time, come back to us. What does that mean? It means that committee to meet extensively. Two, that is what the point I was trying to make about our representation in government.
Okay.
Each of the 360 federal house members has within this constituency about 2 or 3 state house members.
Okay.
What does it take in 6 weeks? Even if it is,
but you forget the anxiety of the general populace. We have seen here how bills were passed in a few days. National anthem, for example. There's a perception that the National Assembly is in the pocket of the executive and will do the bidding of the executive. So that even if you do all those extensive consultation and the executive had made up its mind in one direction, it will go. That it will happen better, that it's withdrawn completely, and a fresh bill that will have taken control, taken cognizance of the areas of sensitivity before it is then presented. Because I cannot tell you, once the Senate, it goes through the committee, goes through the plenary, and you say, yeah, how many people did this say, yeah. By the time you know it is passed into law. And is that in the interest of the country?
Prof, let me say this to you. People are getting in some kind of ego trips. The word withdrawal must be added before you know that it has been strategically withdrawn. Otherwise, like you said, in 1 hour, 2014, the sections of the national conference that Jonathan convoked came out with resolutions about which areas to amend, and about 14 sections of the constitution were amended in less than 2 hours. In 2014, because it was in the common interest of the public. This one now is generating heat, and the Senate has slowed down to the point where it is now saying, wherever forming a committee, go back. Ordinarily, even these 6 weeks, you in the southeast, you in the south-south, senators, you have 27 of you in the south-south, about 15 in the south, not like that across. So get back to your people. Beyond the committee we have set for general purposes, you 360 of you, because it's not just about the Senate. This bill will go also to the federal. There must be a concurrence.
Okay, I don't want to overflow this, but how do you think the governors, how do you think the vice president, which chairs the NEC, how do you think they will feel when they recommended that this should be withdrawn for broader consultation, and the executive went ahead to present it? That's the whole perception.
That presentation is not a destination for the project. The consultation they are asking for is the one the committee is using 6 weeks to do. And their own senators have also a duty, they are duty bound to go back to their constituencies to ask this question. Governors are in control of their 3 senators. So why are they not taking that window? Why are they asking the president use the word withdraw before they know that they have withdrawn it? This bill has been slowed down and thrown back to the population to say, go and debate it. Use your best brains in your different areas. Those who can't get back to a constituency, use the committee that we've set in the National Assembly. 6 weeks. If it's not enough, we can give you more time. So which other withdrawal do you want? Which other consultation will you do?
This is honorable speaking as a party man, but I'm sure you understand what I mean.
No,
let me just move to something different, and that is the nature of our political parties. One of the things you notice in Ghana and a number of other countries is this thing of carpet crossing, which is a parliamentary practice actually, is very rare in presidential democracy to see people hopping from one party to another. And in Nigeria, people choose, and sometimes after attacking a president, you get rewarded later. I just want to use this as a context to ask you this question. You once complained about the reward system of the APC, your party. Yes. And then not only you, recently, Daniel Bwala, who was a spokesperson for Atiku in the last presidential election, was appointed a special advisor on communication. First he claimed he was taking replacing what's the other guy?
Ngilale.
And then he got mixed up in the politics and now was confined to speaking on policy matters. What do you think of that? That's one arm of that question in terms of rewarding party loyalists. Because there are also people who say, look, it is a good thing that it is what they call, you can bring your rivals, people who have abused you in the past. If you look at Biden, and Kamala Harris, she did a brief run during the primaries and she still was picked Biden ran against Obama initially before he withdrew. He was still picked as the vice president. So the people who took that argument say, look, you can talk about team of rivals and the own people who abused you in the past and bring them into your circle to show that you're broad-minded. And then people like party loyalists are thinking it's part of a reward system. Yet, there is another angle to this. If you bring in people who have, so to say, abused you in the past to come and be your spokesperson, how will people perceive? No, I'm not talking about party people now. How would they perceive the message from such a person? Because sometimes the messenger is the message. I hope you know that. The message, who brings the message is important. So if suddenly now you want to see Boala and people who call him all sorts of names, and then he's now coming to make any defense, first of all they will say there's a credibility question. And in that case, the messenger being the message, how do you record these three angles of it? Perspective of people who say it's about reward system being poor, others who say, give an example with former president of the US who talked about team of rivals. You can bring really people who have insulted you, and this America is an example of usually people who run against one another in the primaries. You end up choosing one of them as your running mate, and they work well together. And then there are people who feel, look, you are not rewarding people who work for you. And then there is the other arm, that's four limbs. People who say, look, the messenger, the philosophy of the messenger is the message. It means that your choice will hurt you rather than help you.
I'll take it from the bottom of the last one. In criticism, literary criticism, we have what we call meta-criticism, that criticism of criticism.
Okay.
And there is the dilemma of a good man brings a bad man brings a good thing.
Yeah.
Do you reject it because it's of the messenger? Or a good man brings a bad thing. So because you know him to be reputed to be good, this one that he has brought that is so terrible, do you accept it? And of course, if you remember King Richard II, one of Shakespeare's plays which deals with the issue of royalty, you also come to the conclusion that most of the time, in rhetoric, you find that, yes, the first principle is that the messenger is the message.
Yeah.
And the second is that there is no second chance for rivals. Now, you have a situation in which you are going to choose your best, in which you want a technocrat in an area and you look around your team, you can't afford it, and you look outside through the window and find somebody there. You bring him in. There is a situation in which there is an outright negligence, outright lack of appreciation, compensation for work done. It breeds intra-party crisis. And intra-party crises are far more deadly to party evolution than inter-party crisis. Inter-party crisis, on the other hand, is indeed the motivating force for a political party, because their criticism becomes your advice. Where criticism becomes advice, becomes unsolicited consultancy, free consultancy. Why are you doing this? Why do you increase taxes? And then everybody's not talking about it, so you bring down the taxes, everybody's clapping back for you. So the man is giving you free advice and done free consultancy because he has done his research to show you what is wrong with the system, and say people look at this number of people who are suffering because of the taxes. So you now look at, we don't see this. You go and confirm. Once you do a confirmatory test run, you come back and take it down. Before your tenure ends, you become a superstar, a hero before the people. That we shouted and he listened, but it was your opponent that pointed it out to you. That is how it works. Now, on the other hand, you are talking about people who feel that they've been shortchanged after working so hard. Yes, there's this righteous anger. My brother and friend, Jesus Tega, raised so much dust on it, and within our ranks, we've told him, Sampai, don't forget, in the case of Daniel Fawada, that he was the spokesperson for Tinubu's primaries. You must first win primaries for you to win presidency.
Yeah.
So he partook in baking this cake. And his quality was never in doubt. And there is also the conspiracy theory then how do you think or know? Why don't you think that he was sent to Atiku as a spy? That's the conspiracy theory on the side of the PDP people today that they talk to me about. But you know, PDP are people displaced from power. So we have sympathies for them. They squandered the goodwill they enjoyed for 16 years and are paying the price of ingratitude.
So let me cut you there. Thank you, so interrupt you because of this thing you said. And I want you to take it on board. You said they squandered 16 years they had.
Of goodwill.
Of goodwill, and they're paying the price. Are you assuming or telling Nigerians that the APC that came to power in 2015 has done better? If you can take power.
If you want to do a comparative analysis, you must do it contextually. You compare the comparables, apples with apples. In that way, you can say clearly.
I can give you two metrics to use to compare. Cost of living.
No, yes, cost of living anywhere in the world. Thank God you are an international scholar. In UK, what is the quarrel in UK now?
No.
What is happening in the US today? So will you be comparing, for example, George Bush Jr. with Biden?
No, but still there are things in...
We didn't have COVID under George Bush, under Reagan. So you won't be bringing those two. They had their own crisis at the time, which was the hostage change in Iran Gate. Yeah. Well, they had each epoch developed its own crisis and challenges, and the best method to handle it is what determines success of it.
I can give up to 4 metrics for you to use. In terms of clannishness, transparency in appointment, in terms of corruption, because all these are perceptions. In terms of when I say cost of living, I can bring it down, not just cost of education. The basket of goods your people are able to purchase. You can look at it in other ways in terms of the Jabbar syndrome. You can look at it in terms of the number of people in multi-dimensional poverty that have been produced since APC came to power, contra what it was. And if you want to think about cosmopolitanism of government in terms of inclusiveness, if you go back to the time of Obasanjo, Yar'Adua, Jonathan, using them as benchmarks where you say what has gone wrong.
I will give you statistics and historically to give you historical perspective. The multi-dimensional poverty of Nigeria is not in any way a party created economic crisis. It is a systemic historical reality of our times. Remember when an economic advisor to the president once said that Nigerians are not hungry because I know you are eating from the dustbin. This was in the era of oil boom. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
In Nigerian senators, I said to you that we are not hungry because the Nigerians are not eating from the dustbin. And at a point, in the heat of exactly what was the population?
No, I mean relative
terms. No, what was the population?
No, in relative to the population.
Yes.
If you talk in percentage terms, then you're talking in relativity.
Of course.
I'm not talking about absolute power, absolute terms now.
At all times, then you remember also, again during the height of our oil boom in the between 1985 and 1989, where a minister in Nigeria told us that telephone is not for the poor.
The remark you are saying.
Also remember that even in the height of oil boom, where we put our benchmark for oil at $65 per barrel under Jonathan, we were getting 115 and a minimum of $100 per barrel. And the minister then, the coordinating minister, Konjo, warned and said there should be sovereign wealth created for the excess crude. Governors of Nigeria, 36 of them, for the first time cooperated across party lines and went to court to insist that Section 62 must be obeyed. That all revenues accruing to the Federation will be shared to the federating units.
And the governors,
the money was shared to them.
You should also share the blame. One of the arrowheads, Rotimi, which was also the chairman of the governors forum at that time.
It was a PDP governor, please.
But why is he not?
No, that we are discussing contextual. That's
okay,
what
because at least since APC came to power, he played a pivotal role in it.
This is what we're saying. So a man who comes in as a migrant, imagine a migrant from Australia or a Nigerian migrant, and you go and tell him that he should be eating spaghetti. He shouldn't eat okra soup again because he's in London. He has formed a tradition of swallowing, and then you start telling him to eat spaghetti. You are going to emaciate him and malnourish him. That is exactly what happens here. So the contagious effect needs some form of quarantine, political quarantine, because the culture of impunity, if you remember, those who formed, for example, PDP, the G37, left PDP in anger because what was evolving as of 2003, people like Prof Adibe will tell you that the best form of democracy is a one-party state. They are no longer the progressive that fought the military. So it was hijacked, diverted. People like Prof Adibe even accepted to serve because they were the foundation members of what was then PDP from the G37. But at the end of the day, they were hijacked. Today again, in what you are calling APC, thank God you are mentioning it. You just also alluded to it when you talked about political migration by way of defections. When a man in the morning is shouting Labour Party, in the evening is shouting PDP, and the next morning is shouting APC, such a migrant definitely is a rolling stone that will gather no more. So you can't use him to do, because his ideological standpoint and content is heavily diluted, and where it is concentrated, it is toxic. And the effect is what all of us get into.
Is it not that just there, if you can count the number of politicians who are not?
Precisely. So those ones are the ones who are mostly kept out of the corridors of power. People like us. People like us.
If I read something about a group that were, let me divert to another thing. There was a group who went to Arise to complain about what they call biased reporting. And then later Arise captured some of them quarreling over the money. They were mobilized. There was also a group in your state agitating that you should be made a minister. And we were wondering, did you
pay them to do so?
Did you know about it first?
As I speak to you,
if you knew about it, did you know?
As you talk to me, it was sent to me. The clips were sent to me. I never got to know the persons. I never got to know because they never got back to me. But in my state, they have constantly they cry about. I mean, only yesterday I saw two former speakers from Delta State, the other one from Rivers, who met me by chance at a friend's meeting with one of the military formations here. The commandant invited me out for dinner yesterday, and I met them there. They said, "What have you done to these people that they won't give you anything?" And I said, "They made me chairman of governing council." What is that? Who are the ministers? Who are the DGs? Who are the executive secretaries? And I said, ask that question to Ashu, because as foundation members of this party, back to the reward system.
But is it that people are in party not to push forward for the philosophy of the political party? We know the parties don't have any philosophies. Most of them are just there to, they're just SPVs, special purpose vehicles for capturing power. Are you trying to say that when people talk about reward, that you are working so that you get the sinecures of war, you will be rewarded with appointment? Otherwise, being made chairman of a governing body of a college of education, if anybody can make any contribution from any area, including being asked to be responsible for waste disposal, that somebody can be so impactful in that area. It doesn't have to do, does it necessarily have to be at the
Let me say this to you. That is what in economic terms you call underemployment. When you make a professor a chairman of a secondary education board, and the university where the secondary education people are supposed to go to, and then you now go and make one retired principal to the commissioner for education, will you say that you can contribute from there? Because the commissioner is going to overrule you. That is why some of those appointments, I had got through like that before on that board. I rejected them because I thought I was going to be useless in the place. I won't make any impact. And I don't go to delude myself. I'm not looking for work. I'm not looking for any job to do. If I want to contribute, let me be where I can make my contribution and impact to my country. I'm so much in love of this with this country that I barely travel out of here. If I go out, I'm giving myself time to return. Why? I want to see Nigeria like that. In the first world. And if within this life God has given me, I can do that. I'm in a hurry to do it and I'm ready to do it. So I'm not going to lament about why I will differ and why I had served in 2 previous governing councils. Before now. Federal Investment Minister was the last one. Before I got to the chairman in this one. So that is my fault. I'm a teacher first. I left the teaching work first at the College of Education to Unical and then back in politics. So that is my primary area.
Now, if for example, sorry to aside, try to quickly draw to a close so that I know you have several other engagements. If Tinubu now wants to call you for an assignment, where do you think which areas do you think are you very passionate and say, look, if I'm put in this sector, I'll make a difference?
My first area of comparative advantage is communication. I feel that the government is grossly underreported, right from 2015.
But it has already 14 members in the media team, very bloated.
This is what I'm saying. You will not see the impact. And a simple matter like this, what does it take to break it into different languages? Get National Assembly members, look, you have a majority of APC. Please, everybody return home and go and tell them in your language, in town hall meetings, what we're about to do and what we are doing and the meaning of this. Break it down to their languages. Give it into pamphlets. Why are you quick to give your handbills that you want to contest election, but you will not give to explain what you are doing after winning the election? Why are you not doing that? Why are you collecting research allowances? There's allowance for that, for those level of consultations. It is mandatory. It is in the statutes, it's in the rules of the House, it is in the Constitution, and therefore not doing it in the first place is illegal. And this is where the CSOs will also get up to save Nigerians from their legislators. The legislator is the ombudsman for government. He's the only one that can walk into a drinking shop and sit back there and start discussing policy without any hindrance. The minister can't do that. His retinue of staff will start telling how protocols are done. You went to campaign on market days in the K market in Enugu. You went to Garki market to campaign. You went to Ariara market to campaign. How come you are now in government, you can no longer go there, you are afraid that they will kill you? Then on another election cycle in 2027, you go back to the same Ariara market, they will no longer kill you. By not carrying policemen, carrying dark cars, and then you have protocols. Picking calls now is by PA. It's PA that will call you. I know my community how many times I have to prevent communal crisis because I could get calls by midnight. And they said, look, these people are going to attack this. And I will move the police and the army to the place before I arrive to curtail crisis. That happens on a daily basis. All my life I've been an activist, so I'm in touch with my community at all times. So it is very disheartening to start making legislators look like demigods after elections. You must hold them accountable. You're not owing them, they are owing you after elections. Because you voted. People are telling you they collected ballot box, somebody collected the ballot box. You say they thumbprinted, somebody thumbprinted, he was not the one who did. He couldn't have been in the 8,000 polling units to vote for himself as president or to vote for himself as senator or federal house or state house member. Ministers, yes, your friend can make you a minister. But once you assume that office, you are not representing us. It is in our name. It's because you are from Cross River. It's because you are from Delta State. It is because you are from Jigawa. That is why they made you minister. It's not because you draw from the, oh, you are the best brain. It's because you owe and are representing a community. That community deserves to hold you accountable and ask you questions. But we are not asking the questions. That's where student unionism also becomes a problem. In our days as student unionism, as the budget is coming out, we are looking at the education budget. How much did you give to education? Once you see that it is less than the ones you are going to do as overhead in the presidency, you hear the riots. You bring SAP policy, we analyze it with our professors in the university, and then we go out. The professors sit back, Escotoya and others, Edwin Madunago, and others, they sit back and wait for us. And then we come back. So you hear Digidara operating from Jos, Unical, Ife. By the time those two take off, Amado Bello joins, and the whole country is on the boil and the president, then military administrators, they still sit up and listen to us. What are the students doing? What's doing a looter? To go to minister's office, to go to senator's office to say, I'm loyal, and get peanuts and get pocket money and transport money to go back, and a student is driving a car bigger than even his lecturer because he wants to do a looter by patronage.
Oh, yeah, that reminds me, one of the places the new student union president was elected. I was a student leader myself. I was elected, and he was just had this entourage, was on a horseback, and like a carnival, people were now following. He appointed